Welcome to this episode of Kyber Clips. I'm Mike Jafrida, President of Kyber Security, joined by Bob Thomas, Virtual Chief Information Security Officer of Kyber and for our clients.
Thanks, Mike.
Welcome, Bob.
Appreciate you having me.
We're going to continue the conversation we've been having about CMMC, the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. I have to say it every time just to practice because it's difficult.
There's just so much of it.
We're going to touch on a few specific components today of the CMMC compliance requirements. Throughout this, we're going to cover data flow diagrams, system security plans, and POAM's plan of action and mitigations. So let's start with the system security plan, Bob. I think that kind of falls into the beginning stages of all this. Talk to us a little bit about what an SSP is, how we use them, how we create them.
So an SSP is usually a byproduct of a security assessment. You go through a formal assessment to check on the controls that you have in place, and that system security plan is usually I hate to say a dump out of that system, but it usually is generated by whatever system you're using for tracking that in order to make sure that certain protections are in place to protect certain types of data. And it kind of follows the bouncing ball to say, I have this data, maybe it's CUI, so it's controlled unclassified information. I need to make sure that it is held closely and it's guarded and it is secured in the best manner possible, and this is how I'm doing it. And I think the reason I use CUI as an example is picture a machine shop with a shop floor. Okay, we've got printed paper copies of plan data. We've got electronic copies that were emailed, hopefully encrypted email, secure email to us, downloaded from some portal site that a prime contractor made available. All these different places that information enters. Well, what's our plan for protecting it, and what's critical? What's the most critical data? What's the most critical protection for that data? And how am I going to make sure that the right controls are in place? And that system security plan is a very formal document that covers every type of control and every risk that's out there in the wild to make sure that that plan data and everything that you're communicating internally and externally with regard to that information is appropriate. I think the protection is appropriate.
So you said it comes out after an assessment. You used the word dump. I wouldn't use that one, but I'm okay with that. Is this a one and done scenario with an SSP, or is this something you have to continue to update over time and re-upload to the portal, etc.?
Yeah, so I think the real answer to this is, like most things certification related, it is correct and appropriate at the moment that you generate it, and probably almost immediately thereafter is outdated, needs to be updated, changed. And that doesn't mean the questions have necessarily changed, but your answers may have changed. Oh, that's right, we put in this new advanced threat detection tool to better secure data, to make sure that ransomware doesn't enter our environment, that we're doing the best job possible at reining in users and making sure that they're only having access to the right data. As those types of changes happen, that SSP has to be updated and changed. Does it have to be uploaded at every instance? No, it does not. But at every assessment, it should be looked at, changed, and then I think it's got to be revised and sent to the accrediting board for CMMC.
So how does the SSP relate to the POAM?
So they do kind of work hand in hand. So a POAM, plan of action, and milestones or mitigations, depending on the term that you use or are comfortable with, you're explaining, in this case, to the Department of Defense and the accrediting board, how am I going to fix a problem? I'm not as secure as I need to be, as I should be. I'm missing these particular items. I have gaps, which is what we usually call it. I need to fix those, and I need to come up with a method that's going to satisfy the need for protecting the data and most importantly, what the government wants to know is, when are you going to do it? Are you going to do it today? Are you going to do it a month from now? Is it a serious risk where we don't really want you to wait, or we're not going to allow you to wait? Or it's kind of a low-lying risk, 6 months, yeah, I'll get to it in 6 months, and I'll put that in place. I think those pieces that come out of the system security plan that said, hey, we've got these gaps and we don't really have a good control, then it falls over to the POAM to say, okay, we don't have the control, this is when we'll have the control. And this is not throwing darts at a wall to say, yeah, whatever the government wants to hear, yeah, we're just going to tell them something. It should be, I'm not asking for concrete as far as the answer goes, but it should be based in fact. We're going to be able to do the next 3 things in the next month. Those 2 other things, yeah, we'll get to those in 3 to 4 months. And that one last lingering thing, yeah, that's probably 6 months. We'll get to it. And you're going to have to put it on a board and adhere to it and have a plan to get there.
So one of the controls that we're asked about all the time is the data flow diagram.
Oi. That's all I can say.
I don't think we've ever walked up, engaged with an organization out of the gate who had one of these just because. Talk to me a little bit about what a data flow diagram is, why it's required, and how to create one of these things.
I think you're right. In the CMMC, Department of Defense space, we have never asked the question, do you have a data flow diagram, without a glossed over
the blank stare.
Yeah, the blank stare look from the client saying,
Wait,
what is that? And why would I need to have one of those? Well, you need to have one of those, not just because the government says you should have one or need to have one, but you really need to understand how information is flowing around your organization, how it comes in. Is it coming in a secure manner? How are you getting it? Is it, a FedEx package just got dropped on your desk and, hey, look at that, there's a request for quote in there from Electric Boat and they need you to make this engine part, and there's a plan diagram in there that you have to follow and figure out how you can make 100 of those, and what's it going to take, when are you going to deliver, and how much is it going to cost. And okay, well, we can't do the whole thing, so we have to share the plan data with one of our subcontractors. We don't do heat treating. That guy down the road does heat treating. Well, it's not just heat treating. There's probably 10 different types of heat treating. What type of metal? Well, we're using a special alloy. It's all of those types of things that that are really, really important to understand on how you're protecting the data. But if you don't know where the data is, how are you going to protect it? And who are you sharing it with? I know someone that they take the data, they print it out, they bring the plans to a heat treater, and they hand them that. And their way of protecting it is, once you're done with it, destroy it. Okay, it is written, it is on every one of their documents. I guess you can follow that as a procedure, but what happens if the papers, they fly out the window in the truck when you're delivering the parts and it's out in the street? You hear about medical records with this stuff flying off the back of a dumpster truck and they're out in the middle of the highway. That's a problem. Should have been shredded first.
So are we literally talking about a Visio style process flow diagram that says comes in via email to this mailbox, then it's saved over here onto this drive, and then we share with these people these ways?
So I think it's 2 things. I think it's that, but I don't think you will get to that until you kind of type it out as to, okay, what's the data? And start querying people and asking them, hey, how do you get that? Oh, well, I don't get that via email because that guy, he doesn't really do well with encrypted email and sending it that way. He usually faxes it to me. Okay, that's a way. It is a fairly secure way.
1982.
Yeah, point-to-point communications, I guess you could say. But you've got to figure out and put it on paper, and then you've got to take that kind of Q&A and turn it into what you said is a Visio or some other diagrammatic tool to be able to turn it into something.
So for someone to start this process, they basically have to follow the CUI.
Yeah.
And write it up.
Bouncing ball.
All right.
I think that's, you've got to figure out all the places it comes in, how it wanders around the shop floor, and where it goes from there. And this is just not, you have to know it's not just electronic data.
Right.
People print this stuff, it's sitting on desks, clean desk policy.
Yeah.
You leave your desk at night, it should be clean and stuff locked up. That's a policy and a procedure.
All right. Well, thank you, Bob. I hope this information has been helpful to those of you on your CMMC journey. We appreciate you joining us today for this episode of Kyber Clips.
Thanks, Mike. Hey, thanks, folks, again for joining us today for a Kyber Clips episode. Hope you enjoyed the information. If you did, please don't hesitate in subscribing to our channel, smash the like button, and always comment below or reach out to us at sales@kybersecure.com.